All right, so today I'm here with a super special guest. We go way back. We first met, what was it, maybe 10 years ago in high school. We were actually working at the juice bar with each other. Yeah, Andrew is a super talented digital marketer. I actually poached him from his company and had him to come work with me. So super excited to dive into some topics today. We're going to be talking about digital marketing. We're going to be talking about content creation and data analytics. So welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Thank you. It feels like it wasn't that long ago we were making protein shakes for a bunch of customers and, drinking them ourselves. So it's nice to be here.
Definitely. So just to kind of get a background story, letting the people know who you are, kind of what you do. Your background is in digital marketing. So just take us to the early years in your life where you decided, I want to go to UGA and I want to get my degree in digital marketing.
Yeah, after I got done hanging up my cleats, right, I played baseball, Cletis played baseball. That was something that we really bonded over, I think, initially when we first met. I went to UGA and I actually wanted to be an advertising major, but that was a journalism major. So I was going through Grady, and after speaking with my family, right, they thought it would be a little bit better to get a business degree. So I went into marketing, but really wanted to stay in the creative, the digital realm. I did minor in sports marketing as well, right? Sports are always a big part of my life. I think the reasoning behind staying in marketing, I love persuading consumer behavior, but especially doing it subliminally, right? With marketing technology and creative and advertising and sort of creating like a holistic strategy in order to accomplish business goals, right? Whether the product is B2B, B2C, or even a D2C product. So after going to UGA, my first real job was with a startup. It was with a startup out of California. So I worked remotely before the pandemic, which was pretty unique. I think back then that was sort of, it was coming more and more remote jobs, but before the pandemic, really, it wasn't really, heard too often. So I worked, from my house and really helped grow and support the company getting acquired. And so I think it was a little over a year during my tenure, the company was acquired for $12.5 million. So seeing the process of building a company, trying to grow and get, user acquisition and demand generation campaigns launched, continuing to optimize, and then finding the success of a bigger company coming in and sort of taking over. After that, I moved on to an agency. I wanted to sort of test the waters. What is this like going through, UGA marketing? They always mentioned agency life compared to corporate marketing. So I did want to get a taste of what it looked like on the other side of the marketing side there. And so I worked for IPG Media Brands, and they're based out of New York. They're one of the big four marketing agencies. And one of my biggest clients was Morgan Stanley. And so it was pretty cool because I also got to support a lot of their sports initiatives. So I was working with their sports campaigns and their partnerships with the MLB, with golf, and then some of the other avenues of what they were trying to get into, soccer and a couple of the other sports. So that was great. I then had the opportunity, to sort of stay in the sports realm with a company here local in Atlanta, and they were taking over the youth and high school market when it came to sports technology. And so that's Play on Sports. And so I was able to join them and work on their digital ticketing and live streaming, capabilities, their service offerings, trying to grow user adoption with experimental marketing. I think going through these various different companies sort of created a skill set that I think I never thought I was going to have, which I think I understand many different facets of marketing from strategy, execution, optimization, and then analyses and tracking. And so that's sort of a 4-step approach, I think, to doing most things within marketing. And then, of course, you sort of tapped me. I loved seeing what you were doing on social media. I kept following up with a lot of your projects, and I thought you're a creative genius, right? From what you were able to do and accomplish, especially sort of coming from a baseball background as well and learning how to do everything yourself, being hands-on, always trying to find courses or learn, really it paid dividends for you. And so I knew when you tapped me, I knew you were the right guy to combine, I think, my digital marketing with your creative services to create Avery Media, right? Essentially, which is a modern full stack digital marketing agency.
Man, that was a mouthful, man. I definitely, you know, our background both being in sports, right? I think that is what led to kind of that rekindling because, like you said, you were watching me on social media. At the time, I was still playing professional baseball, and I unfortunately had a bad knee injury. I exited the game and I started creating content, helping out athletes with their social media strategy, landing partnerships, and that's all I knew was sports. But I realized quickly that if I was going to be creating content, we needed something after that. It's like, how can you track the profitability or the success of these videos that I was creating? And I think I may have found you what you were actually doing on LinkedIn because you hit me up like, hey, I love what you're doing. And I was like, oh, what is Andrew up to nowadays? And I was like, oh, digital marketing. So we started to have a couple conversations, and then we started working on a couple side projects. You actually helped me revamp my entire website. You helped me kind of align those services. So I know you had opportunity to work for another company, and this was a 6-figure job. And I had a decision to make like, hey, I want to take my company to the next level. And Andrew is in this transition period where he wants to work with this company, but at the same time, you were in a position where you wanted freedom away from the kind of the corporate space. So just talk about kind of that leap of faith that you made to say like, all right, let's partner up our services, let's partner up our brains, and let's take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, you really inspired me, I think, when it came to being an entrepreneur and going out on your own and trying to build a business from scratch. I saw what you were able to accomplish in just 3.5 years on your own. And so I knew it's hard to find individuals like yourself who are not only great with creative planning, but also the execution and the producing, the editing, right? And, behind the scenes, especially with lighting, right? Creating an ambiance. You really are a jack of all trades, especially when it comes to creative services. So to me, it was almost a no-brainer to utilize your skill set that would help supplement a lot of what I would do, when it comes to digital marketing. I specialize in website implementation, website design, content writing, paid advertising, and paid advertising is very broad, right? It goes from programmatic, you have search, display, audio, television, and I really specialize in paid media. And paid media is very broad, right? But a lot of what I've done is programmatic buying, utilizing digital tools, search with Google. Google's sort of been my bread and butter since day one. Been certified for over 8 years in Google Analytics and Google AdWords, and especially social media marketing. That is huge nowadays. That is driving a lot of revenue for some of the biggest companies. Right. That's again their biggest outlet is creating content that is not only visual and stimulating, but also subliminally trying to make you make a purchase at the end of the day, right? Or utilize their service. So I think, again, combining a lot of what I do behind the scenes and digitally within marketing, it would just pair very well with what you're able to do. I think you are still in your beginning days of being a creative, savant, if you might say, right? I think you are going to, I'll take a timeout. I'm trying to think how I want to say that. Right. All right. There we go. I think you've only scratched the surface as far as your creative, deliverables so far, where I know what you can do. And it's only a matter of time before we get the team to truly execute, I think, on some of your visions and where you would want to go as sort of being like the mastermind of orchestrating an entire project.
So, you've done so many technical jobs, right? From programmatic advertising to data analytics and tracking to really helping push the overall strategy forward, especially with the startup company, taking them from zero essentially, or when you started with them, to selling for $12.5 million. So that's a lot. for people who maybe are just starting a business, or maybe they have success, right? They're stuck at a certain mark, whether it's like 10K, 20K, and they're like, okay, we know that we're at a position right now where we need to start ramping up our advertisement. We need to start reaching a broader audience and really pushing the needle on how we can serve our customers best. So let's just break it down a little bit, right? We came up with this 3-step framework. It's called consult, create, capitalize, because we want to make it as simple as possible to get people results, but then also we want to become an extension of their marketing team. That's our whole thing, is we want to, in that first consulting phase, get into someone's business, genuinely understand what's going on, create that roadmap for success, not just, okay, we're going to get in, do a quick project and leave you on your way, but kind of that holistic approach. So me and you both know the 3-step framework, but let's just break it down step by step, and let's go into like that consulting phase when it comes from a digital marketing perspective.
Yeah, I think the first step for myself, what I usually do with any client, is audit and try to understand what their current capabilities are. So it's a lot of time it's going through their CRM or even their analytics tool and seeing, is everything tracked correctly? Are things populating? Are key events where they need to be, so that you have visibility over all of your marketing efforts, right? I remember, years ago, it used to be, oh, here's a marketing budget, boom, you throw it at the wall, see what sticks. What was the ROAS? A lot of times it'd be just estimations. Nowadays with technology, you're able to essentially track, all of your marketing dollars. I like to say every single dollar you spend from a marketing perspective should be tracked and should feed into an overarching dashboard at the end of the day, where you can provide visibility to whomever the stakeholder might be. It just makes yourself look a little bit, better, but it provides a sense of professionalism that a lot of other companies and other agencies, they just don't. They don't have the technical capabilities in order to execute something like that. I think moving forward within Consult, after, it would be trying to work with them to understand their business goals. Where do they want to be? What channels or avenues have worked for them? And are they trying to expand? Are they trying to find new areas for growth? So it's really understanding where they want to go moving forward. I think the last part then is planning and working with them to create a strategy, create the roadmap, right? Put it down on paper. I always tell friends, book a flight, because then you have something to look forward to, and it's going to make you go on it. If you keep talking about it, right, it can just get lost in space. But if you were to write something down and execute on it, at least the first step, that's sometimes all you need to get started.
Okay, so that's kind of that consult phase, right? So now let's move into the create phase. And this is still on the standpoint from what you specialize in, right? Because I'm more of the creative strategy, the content, and you are the analytics and reporting to make sure that the content we create for our clients then gets pushed out to the right people and tracked. So once we go to that create phase, talk about kind of that process behind your creating.
Yeah, a lot of what I do creating is within softwares and programs. It's building out campaigns, or it's designing websites and landing pages. Really, it's becoming a master, I think, of certain marketing softwares and technologies. Nowadays, whenever people ask me, how do I get a good job in marketing, or what could set me apart, is really having a fundamental understanding of some of the key marketing softwares out there, and really knowing, one, how to utilize the UI, but two, understanding the full capabilities. I think a lot of people, get programs or have certain vendors, and they only use a certain fraction of the total capacity of what a software might provide. So I think first it's understanding the tools of the trade, and I think that's something that can definitely separate people. And then it's, again, utilizing the roadmap that you agree upon it within the consult phase to sort of go on and execute. So if someone's looking for a new website, then it would be myself sort of providing certain templates or certain inspiration, so that I can get a sense of what this individual likes and what they're trying to achieve at the end of the day. Same thing when it comes to building out our CRM. Okay, what kind of marketing automation would you like? What kind of communication cadences would you like to see? And then even within creative, right? Working with creative teams to try to create immersive content that would pair very well with certain advertising campaigns, certain channels, or even how it would appear within a website. Things, again, that are very immersive without being in your face. And then there's always the point of, where's the line when it comes to certain marketing? Is bad marketing good marketing? Because at the end of the day, people talk about it, or are you trying to have a certain tone or voice, right? So it's, again, I think the big part is always the consult phase in order to understand the full scope of the project and what the client really wants. And that, again, drives the creative phase of part 2.
Man, that is super in depth. I love it. That's why, we work great with each other, because you're super in detailed and thorough in everything you do. So hopefully you guys listening to this are taking some notes, because Andrew is going to be dropping gems throughout this entire podcast. So we've gone through the consulting phase, and in your opinion, and you think that is the most important part of the entire marketing strategy, is that consulting phase, understanding the business's goals, making sure all of their technology is set up right, it's tracked properly, and then creating that roadmap to essentially get them to the results they want. The next phase is that create phase, working with the creative team, creating a new website, landing pages, making sure that you align that with your roadmap. So now let's get into the last phase, which is the capitalize.
Yeah, I think capitalize is sometimes a lost art when it comes to some agencies and some companies. A lot of times I see that they set it and forget it, right? That's something what I say. Sometimes I come into a client's campaigns, I see they've had the same campaign running for 6 months, and they're wondering why their performance has staggered, plateaued, or even fallen off, right? A lot of times with algorithms and programs nowadays, they value and emphasize experimentation, always doing something new. And so I always say, campaigns should be max maybe 60 to 90 days. And a campaign is the full, what I call the full breadth of like your marketing efforts. It's not just launching campaigns. It's sort of all of the messaging, the imagery, how you're talking about something. A lot of times with companies, you see them utilize 2 major campaigns at once because they're trying to test. They're trying to see what resonates with certain audiences. And then if they can see a tangible difference, they'll shut one off and go straight with the one that is leading to results, right? At the end of the day, cash is king. If you're finding, hey, this is driving revenue at the end of the day, you can reallocate and sort of prioritize that method. A big part, I think, of the capitalize is continuing to not only optimize, but experiment. Within marketing, if you're not experimenting and having experimentation on an ongoing basis, I think you might be missing out. It's always good to learn, what's new out there. What are some trends that I can utilize to help drive growth and engagement, in certain KPIs that might be important to clients. It's working to understand, I think, the data, and that's when having an analytical mindset, I think it always pays dividends. Analyzing your benchline marks so then you can see, okay, did this campaign drive more people to our website? Is there more engagement now with our service, right? Do we get more leads and more phone calls from this campaign? And you can see that just by having all of the data at hand. And that's why tracking is so important nowadays, right? You can also see attribution. You can see, okay, are my Google ads doing better than my Facebook ads? Or maybe, the TikTok shop is driving a ton of revenue over the past month. Did we get picked up, or did things go viral maybe? So it's always understanding the data, and then you reallocate and you change how things are. And so if you see that Google is making up a certain percentage of your sales and it has a low cost per acquisition, or cost per conversion, then you can reallocate budget and then you can scale that channel up. And that's what all companies are looking for. They're trying to find, okay, if we gave you X amount more revenue or X amount more money, where would you put it, and what kind of ROAS could you provide on that? So that's a big part, I think, of the capitalize phase, is working with clients on an ongoing basis so that they have a sense of security of, okay, they're staying on top of it. It's not that they're just going to launch it. They might have found a couple, quick wins, a couple successes, and they're going to sort of move off. It's staying on top and always developing and always trying to strive to be best in class.
No, that's genius, man. I think a lot of people watching this at least from my background, I've worked as a solopreneur for the longest. I've always just hired people when I saw fit. And a lot of people are trying to figure out, okay, when is it time to actually grow? When is it time to scale up my business? So I want to just take a little step back because you've worked with a lot of large companies, right? Doing tens of millions, hundreds of millions in revenue. So for the people who, like I was saying, maybe stuck at that 10 to 20 or 40 to 50, and they want to get to now they're a 7-figure business, what would you tell them as far as like a good starting point to kind of take that leap of faith and get into, doing all these things that you're talking about?
Yeah, one of the, I think, barriers is sometimes people don't want to spend money. And sometimes you're going to have to spend money to make money. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. A lot of times people are hesitant to maybe spend $5,000, starting small, when that $5,000 could be used for certain initiatives that could really drive significant growth. And so I think a big part is having sort of, I'm not going to say no fear, but finding what you can do in order to get to that next step. And again, a lot like very similar to what you're doing right now. You are investing, I think, in yourself, and I'm investing in you as well in our agency, and we're spending money to make money. We know that we want to get somewhere, and sometimes it's pay to play. Same thing with advertising. I work with a lot of clients, and they'll say, "Oh, we want to start small. We want to, we don't know if we can do this." But really, if they were to get the approval process going, that's a good point.
I think like this whole boom of organic content that's happening right now, a lot of people think that, hey, we can just post a bunch of content online and the algorithm is going to pick it up. And now we are going to get a bunch of customers. But in reality, very rare does it work like that. Unless you have a strategy to go along with it, you're doing viral content or you're doing something that's trending, which is good, but ultimately you want to create content that nurtures your ideal customer. So starting off with that core customer in mind and not necessarily saying, hey, this is our service, but how can we take you from point A to point B? And figuring out that process is going to allow you to now, when you create content, you can have better chances of going viral because you're speaking to that one person who genuinely needs your service. So a lot of times when I see companies who are, like you said, scared to spend money, I always tell them, okay, what does your organic strategy look like? How can we maximize creating content and then test those things out? And it may not cost as much. You can even learn how to create content yourself. That way, once you start to be consistent with it, you can see what's working. And 9 times out of 10, if you have organic pieces that perform well, you can then push those to paid advertisement. So I think that's a great place for people to start if they're like, I don't have a lot of money to spend, or we have a lot of money to spend, but we don't know where to spend it. Your paid advertisement may not do as much damage if you don't have an organic strategy to go along with it. So kind of having that holistic approach to your entire content strategy is what's really going to help you skyrocket.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great point. I'm always a fan of starting small, right? Regardless if you have a large budget or not. I think you should test the waters and see what can work and then sort of continue to optimize off of that. I also think that having a marketing basis that is strong, right, foundationally solid, is of the utmost importance, right? Having a website that is fully optimized for tablet, for web, for mobile, having tracking parameters, having a CRM and a communication cadence, right? Some following up, having media and SEO and things that provide visibility when it comes to a digital perspective, right? So as long as your foundation is solid, anything above that, right? If you put blocks on something that is very solid, right, it's hard to break that. But if you were to build and put, bricks upon, something maybe with holes in it, there's a good chance it might fall, right? It might fail, right? So I always say that the foundation needs to be very strong, I think, before you take that next step to the next level.
So I know you've been doing this for a long time, right? But what are some, like, where can I go and learn stuff like this? If I'm about to graduate college and I want to be a digital marketer, or maybe I've been working at a marketing agency for a long time and I'm like, I want to branch out and start getting my own clients. Where can someone go to learn these skills so now they can go and service people?
They can go to averymedia.com and we'll teach you ourselves. But really, I think a lot of what I did was go to the actual platforms. So I went to a lot of the softwares and technologies that I was utilizing, and I went to their help centers and I became certified. I got either the certification that they provided or the courses to get the certificate at the end of the day. A lot of those courses are put in mind for individuals like yourself, like myself, guys who are really trying to, guys and girls who are trying to grow their company or grow their own capabilities, right? And so it takes you through a lot of tedious and nuanced items, right, within a software. And so those, I think that's step one. That's step one of where you should start, because when you're a master at certain platforms and programs, people will be calling you, and you know, your resume will get noticed at the end of the day because you're qualified, right? It provides some validity behind you. Second is going in and being hands-on, going into the platforms now and actually executing, whether that is with maybe a faux campaign, right, and just sort of launching something to understand, you know, what can happen, or even trying to find like a real opportunity with a company or you know, with yourself, going out on, you know, taking a leap of faith. I think trying to then find a mentor, right, within the space is very key as well. You know, one of my first bosses, his name's Jeff McCrory, he was wonderful at sort of explaining what marketing is. I was 19 years old interning at Fiserv, and so I was the youngest employee they ever had, and I was in their state-of-the-art building over there in Alpharetta, and I was supporting Project Mike at the time. Project Mike turned out to be Zelle. And so at the time, you know, Venmo was blowing up. Everyone, you know, was using Venmo. It became a verb at that time. And so all the major banks came together and said, how do we counteract Venmo? Because, you know, we're not making any money off of that. We don't want to have to use their technology and license it, and now, you know, they're making money off of us. How do we, you know, compete with that? And so Jeff did a great job explaining, okay, this is what we're going to do from a, you know, go-to-market approach. This is what it's going to look like. This is how we provide product marketing to the stakeholders, such as the business, the financial institutions and the credit unions, so that they can then go and advertise this new, you know, this new service that has never been launched before. And so he did a great job explaining, I think, just the ins and outs of marketing, and having him as a mentor where I could go back to him even when my internship ended, where I could rely on him. I could call him up, and he could really just give me the time of day of what I needed, right? He was in marketing for 2 decades before that. So he really saw the landscape transform from being, I'm not going to say base, but marketing without technology, as opposed to now technology being a prominent aspect of marketing.
Okay, so wow, that's a lot to unpack. And, you know, of course, me and Andrew, we work with each other, so we talk about these things all the time. I'm kind of just like throwing questions out at you. I'm a firm believer that education is the, you know, foundation of your success. And, you know, I've never worked at a company, right? I've never had a mentor with 2 decades worth of experience. I've always gone to YouTube University, or I realized, hey, there's people out here that have that experience. They offer coaching programs. I just paid for it. I was terrified at first, but then I realized either I'm going to pay in time, I'm just going to have to wait years to figure it out for free, or I can just pay somebody a small fee and it'll work for me. So we've toyed around with the thought of opening up a mentorship program or coaching people. I've coached people just kind of one-on-one, but we haven't done one-to-many. And, you know, that's something that we're extremely interested in. And I would say a lot of people that are probably listening to this may have already done that first step, where they've gone out, they've done the research, they've you know, mastered their skill. They've worked with companies for a long time. They have mentors, but the hardest problem that they're facing is, how can I actually get an opportunity? How can I get my expertise and implement it into a business? So I want to like dive in a little bit to sales, because sales is, if you don't have sales, your business is not going to flow. So there's the whole concept of either you're always selling or you have to be a damn good marketer to attract your clients. So there's kind of that both lanes that you can go down, but I think you have to do both of them. So when it comes to marketing, you're an expert, right? But when it comes to sales, that's where it's like kind of taking that persuasive mindset, but realizing I'm not trying to sell you anything that is for my selfish tendencies. I genuinely am just analyzing your business and telling you, hey, this is where I think you can improve. Either you want to do it or you don't at the end of the day. So let's just dive in a little bit to kind of, for people who are looking to get customers and they want to do that, what would kind of be your approach to starting and acquiring some customers?
Yeah, I think I want to preface it with, don't be afraid to fail, right? And if you're going to fail quickly and move on from it, right? That's a part of the learning experience. That's a part of the journey. Same thing with baseball. We both played baseball. It's a failure sport. If you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer. You're in Cooperstown, right? So don't be afraid to fail, and don't let a failure get you down or disrupt what you have going on, or even the goals that you want to achieve, right? If you ask most people who are successful, I promise you, they've failed many times in their life. It only takes, one opportunity in order for the dominoes to get moving, for the dominoes to start knocking down. I think to start off, I always say a website is the face, right, of your company. It's the digital face of your company. So I always say a fully optimized website is step one, right? You got to have somewhere for people to look you up. Me, if I hear something, right, I'm going, and I'm interested, whether it's a company or a product or a service, first thing I'm doing, I'm going to Google and I'm going to go research. I'm going to go see, what it's about. And so if you have a face of your company digitally, I think that's step one. Step two would be to set up your messaging, right? How do you want to be perceived? Are you going to be super professional? Are you going to be with, the certain culture of an area, or anything in between, any sort of combination, right? What kind of messaging do you want to have for yourself and your company? And then I think the third part is not being afraid to knock on doors, to make calls, right? Again, to spend a little bit of money to create advertising, to see what you can try to create and generate at the end of the day. I think those first three are a great starting point for any individual, when it comes to launching a business or a service offering.
And when you think about packaging up those three, there's this whole thought process of, am I going to be branding myself as a personal brand, or am I going to brand my business? So I've always branded myself as a personal brand. It's like you can essentially create stuff and put it out there on what you're interested in, and you then attract people who are interested in the same thing, versus I'm trying to fill a gap or a need in the market. So what are your thoughts on just kind of personal branding versus business branding?
Yeah. I'll be honest, personal branding isn't for everyone. They don't necessarily like to be in front of cameras. They don't like to be the face of a company. I will say you do a phenomenal job of it, which is another attractive part, I think, of myself teaming up with you, right? Having a personal brand in association with a company, I think is very, not only cool, but I think it's sort of what's trending with the times nowadays, right? When they think of you, now they think of your business. And so it sort of goes hand in hand.
That's solid. So I want to kind of like reverse the roles, right? I've been asking you a lot of questions. So what questions do you have for me in regards to kind of the creative side of the business, or anything? I'll kind of just open it up to you.
This is good. This is fun. I always actually wondered, when it comes to the creative process and figuring out what you would want to do with certain companies, how do you start off? If a company comes to you and they say, we want you on this creative project, and we don't really know what we want to capture. We just want you there to capture it. What do you do then when the prompt is very vague?
Yeah, just having that creative freedom is always nice. Anytime a company just opens up the doors and they're like, hey, we trust you, create something cool. I think one that starts with, like you're saying, your personal brand. If I'm creating content and putting it out there consistently and a company hits you up, odds are they like the style of content you're creating. So you just essentially do that same thing. But a lot of times companies will come to you with an idea and they'll say you have creative freedom, but at the end of the day, they know what they want, or they at least have an idea. So the first thing I like to do is ask them let's dive into maybe some of your competitors or some inspiration that you've seen. So we can kind of reverse engineer what they did and their success to kind of use that to formulate your own strategy. Because I always talk about a book still like an artist. Essentially, nothing is ever just created. You just taking ideas from all over the place and making them to your own. So that's the first step in my creative process is let's do some market research. Let's figure out what style of content you like to create, but then also like what are the goals of this content that we're creating? Is it to build more brand awareness? Is it to maybe explain your products or services better to your internal team? Maybe it's to drive revenue. There's so many different goals that you can have, short term and long term. So let's just get an idea of, before we even start creating, what's the purpose? Like, why do we even need to do this in the first place? Because a lot of times people think they may need to create content, but in reality, it may be, like you said, those first steps. You just need a better website, or you need better messaging. Your content is already good. So I like to figure out the foundation first before I just go in and create content. So that's kind of like my framework for it. And then, of course, creating pillars, right? So you have your educational, your entertainment, your inspiration. Like, how can we create evergreen content around a couple pillars within your business, and then let's get it onto paper. Let's create a content calendar and let's line up. Okay, here's 10 topics on your education. Here's 10 topics on how you can entertain, but also, educate. Here's 10 topics on how we can inspire people. And if you can hit all 3 of those in one video, you're going to crush it. So a lot of times people just go in and like, hey, we want to create this because we know we need to do video. Everybody's doing it. But if you can just line up those steps in advance, the video content will be a cakewalk. I don't even know if a cakewalk is a thing, or a walk in a park. So yeah, but that's kind of like the foundation of any type of content that I'm creating.
And you've worked with, $1 million brands. You've worked with local brands on various different projects, right? What's your favorite type of creative project?
Man, that's a tough one. I love hearing people's stories. So any type of brand story video or any type of testimonial from a customer that's used a product or service and they're just sharing about it. So just kind of bringing someone along that journey of how a client's product or service impacted someone's life, whether it's, like I said, the client, but also like the CEO, why he started the company and what type of impact he's making. I love creating that content. That is really what drives me, is to take people's stories and really bring them to life. Because a lot of times I'll talk to very successful businesses, very successful people, and they just don't have a way to showcase that. And it's like, man, you've been doing this for so long, but if I Google search you, I can't find any content on it. Like, just telling your story is impressive in itself, but doing it in a way where it can be educational, entertaining, and then also inspiring. That's something that really drives me. So that's kind of where I started working with athletes, because a lot of times those athletes are just head down, locked in on their craft. But they've gone through a lot of pain. They've had to sacrifice a lot of their time with their friends, with their family, giving up a lot of things to get to where they are. So I wanted to drag those stories out of the athletes. But I realized that it's not just athletes. There's human beings, regardless, even if you sell a product or a service, your story needs to be heard. So that's kind of the content that I really enjoy doing.
That's awesome. And to touch on that, right? I've seen a lot of your content. I think one of the best things you do, which I don't even know if it's by design, is you create this emotional appeal. And it's sometimes not even in your face. It's just underlying in the way that you capture certain stories or goals, right, of certain individuals. What inspired you, or what do you think has molded you to capturing things in that framework?
So I watch a lot of filmmakers, content creators online, like I was saying, and just seeing how they kind of unravel the story. I'm a firm believer of starting off, when it comes to like physically shooting the video, is kind of setting the scene. Like, how can we bring people into this person's life? And then having those close-up detailed shots to really spark that emotion, and just holding it on someone's face and just seeing their reaction. And also music plays a huge role into that. If you can capture a soundtrack that fits the mood of the video, that's going to help push the story forward. But then it's crazy because I don't really watch a lot of movies, but when you think about all the movies, there is a main character and he goes through this journey. And as he's going through this journey, there's someone who comes along and helps them out. And the person who helps them out actually becomes like the main person. Like, although the main character, it's their movie or their thing, the person who helps them is the one who like gets the light shined. So I always like to think about it that way: is who's my main character? What is his, who's his person that's going to help him get to that goal? And then of course you always got to have some sort of like conflict, like what problem are they facing, and how are they going to solve this problem, like the climax of your story. And then from there, you're essentially just trying to take people on this roller coaster. It's like you want people to genuinely connect with the person or the product, whatever the case may be. So how can we portray that in a way that just connects with the audience?
A lot of your projects and deliverables are very culture driven in a way where it feels relevant. It feels modern. Could you talk about how important it is to have your own style on your projects and in your own creative?
So that just comes with time, right? The more, like, I've created thousands of videos, and when I first started on TikTok, it really allowed me to just test out things. Test out different camera angles, test out different lighting, test out whatever I wanted to do. And that's what kind of evolved my style of shooting. And it's something that you don't even really think about when you're going to create something. You've just done it for so long that it just becomes yours. But I always want to just be authentic to myself. I always want to allow the person that I'm shooting with to be authentic to themselves. So just making them feel comfortable always allows that story to just feel like, have that connection. And that's my style, is I want people to be themselves, which ultimately is going to make for a way better video if you're shooting a person, that is. And product videos are completely different because you can highlight the benefits, talk about people's pain points and how this product actually solves their pain points. But my style really just evolved from doing it a lot, but then also just being an open book and allowing people to feel comfortable to really dive into their stories.
Yeah, and you've done an amazing job growing your personal brand and our agency, right? And you have that validity because you've won awards for this before. You're always scoping the landscape of what's next when it comes to creative. Could you just touch on what you've seen are some trends that have been very prominent lately with a lot of businesses?
So with creating content, of course you have your short form, what's trending. People love just scrolling on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and watching those short dopamine hits of content. But I've seen a shift to where people are tired of looking at the fast-paced edits. They're tired of being tricked or bamboozled into trying to click this link or just get attention. People genuinely want to sit down, get to know somebody, see if they are an expert, or really just hang out with them, right? There's a rule that I think Google did a study, and it's the 7-11-4 rule. And we talk about this all the time, where you need to have 7 hours spent with someone 11 different times in 4 different locations. So when you can think about that in your content strategy, that's a lot of time to spend with someone before they can genuinely trust you to buy your product or service, invest into your business, whatever goal you're trying to get to when it comes to creating content. If you think about, okay, I've been creating a lot of short form videos, but what's my other 4 touch points or 3 touch points? The 7-11-4. I have short form content. I have long form content, which is why we are creating this podcast, so people can just spend more time with us, dig into our brains, and see kind of our methodology on why we started the business, how we create. But then also, people consume content so many different ways. So it doesn't just have to be video content. It can also be written content. It can also be in-person events. So the trends and what's happening right now is you have to be everywhere, an omni-channel approach in order to really grow a business. And I find it a lot more beneficial if you're selling a high ticket service to create longer form content like this, because people can genuinely understand what it is you do, and you can answer a lot of those common questions that you get in a video just one time, and then take that long form piece of content like a podcast. It could be 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours I've seen, and that's going to give you a solid foundation to where you can then take that long form video, break it up into short form videos. And then once you get those short form videos, now you kind of get a idea of, based on these, what topics are really working. So now you take that one topic or 2 or maybe even 5, because realistically you can break down on an hour podcast episode probably 10 to 15 clips. And if just 3 of those work, now you can take those and make spinoffs of each piece. You can take those spinoffs and then now test those. And then now we're talking about advertising. So it's like, that's a great way for business owners, entrepreneurs to maximize their time and efficiency with content, is to start off doing long form and then break it down into short form. So that's kind of where I see the market going, is genuinely building those deeper connections with people, having real conversations, inviting other industry experts onto your show, and just chopping it up.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And being the founder and CEO of Avery Media, right? That makes we are a minority-owned business, essentially. What is it like being a Black professional in the corporate setting sometimes?
It goes both ways, right? My pops always told me you always got to be one leg up. You always are going to have to work harder. You're always going to have to do more in order to put yourself on the same level as someone who may not look like you. So I've always had that instilled in the back of my head, is I have to work twice as hard. But now, once you get some sort of accolades, or you have a proof of concept under your belt, a lot of people want that diverse perspective, because you can come into a business where it's predominantly ran by non-minorities, and now it's like, okay, you have this young Black professional coming in with a unique perspective. He comes in with some flavor, and it's like, how can we take his opinion and help our business grow? So I try to look at it that way, where it's like, I'm not one step behind because I've put in the work. Now these businesses need my perspective and they want it. So it sucks in the case because traditionally Black men, Black women, they're paid lower salaries. They don't have as much opportunity because of socioeconomical circumstances. But I try to look at it in a perspective that I was extremely fortunate to have a family that supported me and gave me the opportunity to then go and chase my dreams and get access to resources. So I take that and I go even harder because a lot of people don't have that opportunity. So I look at it as a blessing, to be able to come into a business, inspire them from a diverse perspective, but then also connecting with our youth to really show them like, hey, I was an athlete. A lot of young black kids want to be athletes or be artists, and they think that's the only way, but there's so many other ways that you can be successful. So I really use it as like, I want to inspire the youth to know like there's so much opportunity out here if you can get your hands on the resources. So that's what genuinely drives me, is to be that kind of liaison between our younger generation and the older generation, right? When I think about our core audience, right, there are two types of clients that we serve. One is the business, where they are by the books and they're realizing this younger generation is coming in and taking up market share because they are more tech savvy. So we help them modernize their systems, modernize their messaging and their approach to how they grow their business. And then our other core audience are the young entrepreneurs who are looking for honest, authentic mentorship and help them and give them the resources to where they can grow. So those are kind of the two people that we service. And I just look at it from that perspective of, I want to be a light that I can shine on people through my diverse lens.
That's great. Could you touch a little bit about how, I guess, your childhood and growing up inspired you and your, I'll start over. Could you touch on a little bit of how, your experience growing up and, in your environment where you lived inspired your I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Let's see. Yeah. Could you touch on a little bit of how your childhood and experiences sort of impacted and inspired what you do from a business perspective?
My dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force, actually. And back in, I think it was 2003, he wanted to start a business. And the business was called Chore Master. And the tagline was, got kids, got chores, get results. Because we had to make sure all of our chores were done. Otherwise, we weren't going outside. We weren't going to the movies. We weren't playing sports, nothing. And we grew up in a very strict place where we knew you had to take care of your business. Essentially, it was a software that was burned on a CD. So we would go out to church. We would go out to parks. We would go out to the parking lots and pass this CD out. And essentially, it was helping parents say, hey, if your kids go on, they do all the chores that you assigned them, and they track it inside of this software, you can then give them an allowance. So from early childhood, I knew if I wanted to get something, I had to put in work and make sure that it was stamped off on in order to go outside and play with my friends. So that really instilled into me, like, you just got to get stuff done, right? And I always took my education serious from an early age and knew that sports would eventually come to an end. So, in order for us to get anything, like I was saying, we had to do chores. But then also, if we had some sports equipment that we weren't using anymore, we were selling it on eBay in like 2003, 2006. It was like, hey, I'm going to sell this old bat so I can get me a new one. And then that transitioned to, wow, if I can sell this stuff on eBay, let me go around to different garage sales or other people's houses and see what old stuff do they have. And then that's kind of what sparked my entrepreneurship journey. It's like, I know people have stuff that they need to get rid of, or, how can I just sell? I just want to sell so I can make money to go and do fun stuff. And then, of course, I definitely give credit to my brother. He was a creative out the womb. I was helping him make YouTube videos when he was, 8 years old, I feel like. And we would just do these videos and edit them. And he really inspired me to create content once I stopped playing baseball, because I, saw him doing it and saw the success that he had, and it transitioned that way. So it's a whole story. We can dive into that another day. I know we're approaching the end of this conversation, but I really, I really appreciate you, for hopping on this episode, for partnering up with me in this business as we continue to grow. We're going to be having way more conversations like this. This is literally our first one. So yeah, I just wanted to make an introduction. We talked about our 3-step framework. We dove into kind of what it looks like to create a strategy for your business. So yeah, I appreciate you, Andrew. And then if you have any extra words that you want to say now, you can go ahead and say them. If not, we'll end the episode here.
Cletis, what makes Avery Media different? Like what sets us apart?
What does set us apart?
We're a modern digital marketing agency that has expertise in various different aspects, right, within business. And so I think the best part is we're both, I would say, experts in our field, and bringing our skill sets together, again, I think creates the best partnership that you could want within an agency, because you have someone who has so much knowledge within creative and so much knowledge creating different formats, different deliverables, and the understanding of the landscape. And then you pair that with someone who has, so many certifications and understandings of marketing software and technology. And when you combine that together, that's essentially what digital marketing is in 2024 and where it's going, towards 2030. It's how do you take content and then how do you distribute it? And how do you distribute it to the right audience? How do you find, who your buyer is at the end of the day? So you're not just selling, men's pants to women, right? How do you truly determine, where your placements are and how to generate the best return?
A lot of times people will ask me, so what's different about your agency? And my answer would be, I don't know. Why are we different? It's why are you on this call in the first place? It's because you connected to me. It's a feeling that you have when you have a conversation with me. That's like no other conversation you've had. It's that genuineness that people can feel that radiates, right? So when there's a lot of people that are good at what they do, right? That's the first step. You're not going to do business with somebody if they can't get you a result. So the fact that we can create dope content, we can track the results of it, we already have the first step. Now, what separates us is the feeling you get with working with us, the amount of communication and authenticity that we have in just delivering you information. It's like we genuinely want you to grow. Like if you're not a good fit for us, we will point you in a different direction. But at the end of the day, we want to let you know we are here for you. We're an extension of your marketing team, and we only work with a select few clients because we want to work with them for a long time. Like most of our clients we've worked with have been over a year, because once we get in there, we create that roadmap, and it's like we're now your partners. So that's what separates us, is we're not just going to come in there, do a quick website, create some content and leave. We're going to be your service. And I believe I talked about this on another episode. When Amazon first started, they were just selling books. Now you can go to Amazon for everything. You can get books, you can get groceries, you can order a vacuum cleaner, you can watch movies, listen to podcasts. They have grocery stores. Like you can do everything on the platform. So that's the same type of time we're on, is providing a solution for you no matter where you're at in your business, allowing you to genuinely understand what's going on and being that like, hey, we got you.
Yeah, when people ask me what separates us, it's not just that you're an expert in everything creative. I have my expertise in digital marketing and technology. I think we're truly in the business of relationships, of building relationships and creating relationships that stand the test of time and stand through different business challenges that might arise throughout the whole process. And so I agree with you. It's almost looking for, again, the right individual, the right client who loves what we have and what we have to offer, right? Again, it's a modern approach to digital marketing. It's something that's true, right? It's not old school, hey, we're trying to sell you this product, right? Let's put it in your face. No, we're going to try to create something that has an emotional appeal, that feels intimate. And then ultimately someone's going to make a decision based off of that.
That's great. Sweet. But I think that's it for this episode. All right. Cut.